5 simple things you can do in order to fight infection post-transplant. Once again, I appreciate you being with us today on the Transplant Helper podcast / YouTube video series. My name is Jim Merle, and I want to remind you again as we start this program that I cannot come to you with medical advice because I have no medical background whatsoever. I'm not a doctor. I'm not in the medical field, but I can come to you with experience as one who has, quote, been there and currently doing that. Today we're going to be talking very simply about fighting infection post-transplant. You have to understand that when you've been through an organ transplant surgery of any kind, whether it be heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, whatever it is, that post-transplant you're going to be in a condition where you're going to be much more likely to get some kind of infection or some kind of disease or illness than perhaps you've ever been in your life. Maybe you're like I was in pre-transplant. You're the kind of person who rarely seems to get sick. Maybe everybody around you at the job or at the school or even in your home seems to be catching little quirky things here and there, the colds, the flus, the strep throats, whatever it is, the viruses, but you don't really seem to get any of that. Well, that's probably going to change for you post-transplant. Post-transplant, when you put on all these immunosuppressant drugs and such as that, which, by the way, are going to be keeping you alive basically by trying to prevent organ rejection, at the same time, they're going to make you much, much more susceptible to the minor and even the major infections and viruses that you could potentially catch that could be very detrimental and even deadly in some cases. Now, you have to be very careful. So how are you going to deal with that? Well, let me give you some examples of how severe these things can be just to get your mindset for what we're going to mention in just a moment. That's those 5 things that are going to help you to prevent those infections. I want to tell you a few instances in my life. Let's take what we call in the South, at least, the old stomach virus. And I put the word old in front of it because we all know what we're talking about when we talk about the old stomach virus or the stomach bug. Most people, when they get the old stomach virus, have it for about 24 to 48 hours. And although it's terrible, you know, the vomiting, the diarrhea, all things that can come with that, nobody wants it. Once you get that, generally speaking, most people have that for between 24 to 48 hours, and then it's gone. There'll be some weakness and some fatigue and such as that for a few days, and maybe you don't really feel up to eating and such as that. And it's hard to get your hydration back, but you're generally over that within 24 to 48 hours. Well, back about 3 years ago, I got the stomach virus post-transplant. And I didn't have it for 24 to 48 hours because I was on all the immunosuppressant drugs. I got it and kept it for 17 days. You heard me correctly. I kept the stomach virus, the old stomach bug, for 17 days. And I spent the better part of 2 weeks in the hospital being treated for that, trying to get their assistance and remaining hydrated and just trying to survive. You know, I didn't know if I was even going to make it. It's that severe. So you don't want to get sick. By the same measure, the things that seem even more minor than that, the colds and such as that, the sinus infections. I had a sinus infection, which most people that were around me, most of the family members and friends that I had that were getting the sinus infections, the allergies and such, they were beating that in a week or so. I had that for 13 weeks. So much different post-transplant than I was pre-transplant. You can't get rid of anything. I had another friend, and this is a case that I hope really jars your mind. He was an athlete. He was a college basketball player. He had a very successful heart transplant. He was doing great, but he caught something that he thought was just a cold. Had the typical symptoms, runny nose, coughing, fever, whatever it was that was going along with that. And he overlooked that. He disregarded that. And after about a week or so, he decided finally, I probably need to check in with my transplant coordinators. I probably need to go ahead and go to the doctor. He did. He had pneumonia. And inside of that second week, he actually passed away. He died from that. Now, that's how severe things can be. Now, typically that would not have taken his life. Typically that would not have taken most people's lives. He was a young college athlete, but because of him being immunosuppressed, it was much more severe. So maybe that's enough. You don't want the stomach virus for 17 days. You don't want to stay sick with a a sinus infection for 13 weeks, and you certainly don't want to die from a case of pneumonia. So make sure that you avoid infections. Now, let me give you a few simple ways, about 5 of them. We may expound a little bit more, but let me give you a few simple ways that you can fight infection and help yourself to stay healthy. Number 1, wash, wash, wash. Now, you may think that's overly simplified, but you need to constantly be washing your body, washing your hands, and even washing your clothes, being sure that anytime you've been exposed to anything or remotely had the opportunity or the chance to be exposed to anything, that you're washing those hands. Sometimes people, I think if they saw me washing my hands, and again, I'm 4 years post-transplant, I'm still this way, but if they saw me washing my hands, they probably think I'm about to go into surgery myself as a surgeon, because I'm washing my hands inside out, between my fingers and up to my elbows, because I don't want anything. I've learned my lessons. I've been sick enough. I've been in the hospital enough for what should have been so minor. You just don't want to get sick. Now, if you don't have an opportunity to wash your hands, and I recommend, not everybody would, but I recommend that you keep a small bottle or some kind of hand sanitizer, in your pocket, and that you use that, and that you use it aggressively. Now, somebody may argue with that, and they say, well, I don't believe in hand sanitizers. They're not good for your skin or not good for your body. Argue that if you'd like. Google that. Look that up on other YouTube videos. That's up to you. Me personally, I'll use a hand sanitizer because I would rather have a problem with my skin or some other something come up because of that and be alive than not. That's a personal preference. You don't have to comment and argue that with me, because I understand the dangers and people who argue against hand sanitizers. I personally use it. I recommend wash, wash, wash. And if you have to, if you're not able to wash, use hand sanitizers. That's just simply number 1, wash. Keep yourself clean. Number 2, wear a mask. Wear a mask often and whenever you're in public. Now, probably most transplant centers would recommend to you post-transplant that you're going to wear a mask for between 6 to 12 weeks. And by mask, I simply mean, a paper mask, something like this. Just put the mask on, wear it whenever you go out in public, whenever you're going to be around a larger group of people, or whenever you're going to be around someone who you already have some kind of knowledge that they're sick, that they're ill. Well, I agree with that. I certainly agree with that. Wear that thing for 6 to 12 weeks, especially post-transplant, right after surgery. But I'm going to go a step further than that and say that you need to wear that anytime that you feel like that you're potentially or remotely in danger of catching something. Now, what I mean by that is, don't be afraid to wear your mask. Say you're a year out, and you know that you're going to be going in an environment where cousin so-and-so or aunt so-and-so had the flu last week. Go right in and put on your mask and wear it anyway. You say, well, that would be embarrassing. Again, it's not as embarrassing as constantly staying sick. And if that could be embarrassing, it's not as embarrassing as putting yourself in a condition where you could potentially lose your life. Because again, what is made aunt so-and-so or cousin so-and-so sick for a few days may very well hospitalize you, or may very well put you in a position where you're going to be severely ill, if not dead. And I know I'm always blunt on the program here, and I don't have any problem being that way, because these things are serious. Now, I'll go a little further with that. When I talk about wearing your mask, if someone wants to look and someone wants to point and someone wants to make fun or poke fun, don't worry about that. As a matter of fact, here's what I do, and I'll just let you see the one I have in my hand. I have fun with it. You see the little smiley face, the little mouth, the little buck teeth on it. Draw on it, have fun with it. I know a lot of people that outside the paper masks, they've gone out, and I don't know where they find them or if someone makes them, but they've got masks that are sewn, that are custom made, that fit. Do whatever you have to do, but mask up. Don't be afraid to do that, and do it excessively. And I'm 4 years out, and if I catch wind that the flu's coming through my town again, I'm going to wear a mask. I'm not going out to the grocery store without a mask. I'm not afraid nor ashamed to do that. So number 1, wash, wash, wash. Number 2, wear a mask and do it excessively. Number 3, avoid sickness. You say, well, that's too simple. What I mean by that is, again, if you know that someone in your family or someone in your church or someone in your school or someone in your workplace is sick, do your best to stay clear of those people, to stay away from them. You know, I'm in a condition in my family where I've got several children. My wife and I, we have a number of children. We love children. We're glad. We're blessed to have them. And kids stay sick sometimes. Kids get sick. And so what'll happen in our house sometimes, and I hate that this will ever happen, but you know, if one of my children gets sick, and so my wife takes one of them to the doctor, and she calls me, my phone rings, and she says, hey, I just want to let you know I'm leaving the doctor with so-and-so, and they've got strep throat. What will I do? Well, I'll immediately start thinking back. Now, when did they get sick? How long have I been exposed? And do I stand a chance of getting away from that exposure if I left now? And, you know, I'll go stay with a friend. I'll go stay. My parents live just across town. I'll go stay with them for a few days and try to avoid being exposed to people who I know are sick. And so avoid sickness. Try to stay away from it. Don't go into environments where you know there are sick people. A lot of my time as the transplant helper, I spend in hospitals and visiting people. But generally speaking, I'm on cardiac floors. Generally speaking, I'm on transplant units. And I'm going in to see people who have problems with their hearts and their lungs and their kidneys. I'm not going in to see those people who are there because they have the flu, or there because they're in for some virus. I'm trying to stay away from that. So wash, wear a mask, avoid sickness. Number 4, choose offense over defense. Now, you say, well, that's a little bit strange to say. Here's the way I want to describe that to you. Don't be afraid to offend somebody instead of having to try to defend yourself. Now, be careful with the way you take this, but if someone comes in your midst and they are sick and they reach out to say, shake your hand, or as we do a lot of times in the South, to hug your neck, back away. Don't shake their hand. Push them away as kindly as you can. Say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't shake your hand. I can't hug your neck. As a matter of fact, I would appreciate it if you kept a distance between you and I as we spoke, because I cannot afford to get whatever you have. And maybe it's because you heard them coughing on the way toward you, or you saw them sneeze, or maybe you've already knew that again, Aunt so-and-so is sick, and so you bumped into her in the grocery store, and she runs to you. Oh, I hadn't seen you in forever. Stop. Don't come near me, because I cannot afford to get what you've got. And so do your best to try to let people know ahead of time. You know, if you're sick, if you have what even you think is a minor cold or infection, please stay away from me. Don't involve me in that, because I don't need to be any part of that. And so choose to offend the person rather than have to defend yourself, because you don't need to be laid up in the hospital for a week or two taking IV antibiotics and all sort of antivirals and all this kind of extra stuff later to try to defend and ward off something, when you could have stepped back and put on an offense and said, hey, I just don't need to be around you. And take that as far as you have to. You know, if the family reunion's coming up, as much as you want to see your family and as much as I'm sure they want to see you, you check things out. If that's going to occur in the middle of flu season, you may be better off to miss out, or you may be better off to go, but to keep your distance from, certain situations. Just be careful. And you don't have to upset people. Just be careful. And then number 5, and it's kind of bounces off of that one, not only that, but reward those people who protect you. And I have a number of people. I've been at this for 4 years, post-transplant now. I have a number of people, family members, friends, whatever, that when they see me coming, if they've got anything, the sniffles, they'll immediately stop me 10 foot from them and say, stop. You don't want what I've got. Back off. I'm sick. I'm not feeling well. It may not be a big deal, but you don't want it, so you stay back. and I will praise them. I will reward them as much as I can. Thank you so much. Thank you for not sharing what you have. Thank you for considering me, whatever, because there's going to come a day when, I'm going to be able to come back and say to them, I'm so sorry you were sick last week. I'm glad to hear you're better, and let's shake hands now that you are better, whatever. I'll make that up. But reward those who are considerate of you. Reward those who put your health first, because again, the person who comes up, and I've had this happen, don't get me wrong, but who comes up and shakes your hand and has a 5-minute conversation, and then after it's over says, yeah, I was thinking about going to the doctor tomorrow. I've been feeling terrible for 3 days, and I keep this fever going, and if it wasn't for taking Tylenol and Motrin and ibuprofen and all, I'd have a fever right now. Oh, those people, you can't be around that. You just simply can't. And so, reward those people who protect you. So let's go back through them very quickly. Wash excessively. Keep your hands, your body, your clothes clean. Wear your mask. Be excessive with that. Don't be afraid to wear your mask in public places at any time post-transplant. Don't be afraid. It protects you. Avoid sickness. If you know there's sickness in your family, in your friend circles, in the workplace, try to stay away from that. Choose to offend people rather than have to defend your own body later, and then reward those who will stand up and say, look, you don't want what I have, and that we're willing to protect you first. Again, these are just a few tips, and I realize there's much more we could say, and we'll probably come back another day and talk about infection, but you don't want to get sick. Post-transplant, you do not want to be sick, and so just keep these things in mind. If you have any suggestions you can add, please put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you any way that I could. You can go to our website of truthbetold.org/transplant helper and let us know, any way that we can help you out. In addition to that, I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call even. My number is 256-733-1639. You can also find me on Twitter at transplant_help. That's the Transplant Helper, but it's at transplant_help. And again, we'd love to hear from you. We appreciate your likes, your shares, and certainly those of you who subscribe, and it helps me to continue to make these videos. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Stay stronger, friends.